So you're looking to master an album, and there's a few things that you're looking for. For instance, as someone is going from one song to the other, you're trying to create an enjoyable listening experience. Basically, you don't want the listener to feel like that song's too loud, now that one's too quiet, now that one's too loud, now that one's too quiet. You want to create a cohesive sound so that when someone is listening, they don't even need to touch that volume knob. This is just one of the many things that I'm trying to accomplish when I'm mastering an album, for instance. But what I'm going to do in this video is I'm going to show you some workflow tips that'll help you get to a finished product that you enjoy, and at the same time maybe show you some ways to create those seamless transitions in things you may or may not have picked up on in your process as of yet. So let's check out my album, and I'm going to show you my mastering session for an album project right now. Okay, so this is my project for my mastering of an album called Weird Nights 2. And let's just identify what we see in the project. Basically what I did was I imported all of the audio from every single mix. So at the very top, you see these markers or memory locations. This is the overture. This is 1 a.m. This is my Porsche. We used to, etc. All numbered as far as the track list is concerned, all the way to the last song, which is track number 12. As you can see, what I did was I have the session organized as the marker is starting the song, which you see it right here. It's at the very start. And then the next marker that you see is at the very start of the next song, which is pretty self-explanatory. So this is how I have my session laid out. Also beneath this, you'll see all these chops and cuts and things of that nature. So what these are a bunch of effects, sound beds, and things of that nature. For instance, when you're creating or mastering an album or like a Kendrick Lamar kind of thing, when you hear those dope sound beds or like a car driving and stuff in between tracks, this is where, or this is during this process where I actually put those kind of things inside. I'm going to show you how I create those transitions and everything, just showing you a lay of the land of how it all is set up. So all my effects, all my sound beds, sound effects and stuff like that are right down here. And then all of the tracks, the actual 2 tracks of the music, are all up here for the most part. Now, the other thing that I'm trying to accomplish when I have this master is a cohesive sound. Remember how I told you how you're going from one song to another, and I'm trying to not create these huge volume differences and try to make a sound that the user doesn't have to touch the volume and it all feels cohesive. So without showing you the technical side of it as far as EQs and limiters and stuff, I'm just going to show you an example and kind of play a little bit of each song, and you feel the volume difference between all of them. So let's do this right quick. I'm going to play a little bit of each song. Check out the loudness of each one.
That's why the smoke is free and I that you have to stay. When the phone boss and leave, don't be a little different when you're rich. Switch lanes, when she hot. You don't wanna go back, Whitney. How the fuck I'm hanging out with producers? Every night you telling me that I pay my dues. Fool me once, okay.
So as you can hear, going through each song, you can hear a cohesive sound for the most part. Each song, I didn't feel like, oh, that needed to come down, that needed to go down. You felt like the vocals were all kind of sitting in a similar space. It didn't feel like one song felt extremely loud from the other. You're creating a cohesive sound so that when the listener is listening back, for the most part, it's an enjoyable experience to the point where they don't feel like they have to turn that knob. Like I said, this is what has worked for me. There's a million different ways to do it. I'm not saying this is the right way to do it, but this has truly worked for me for years, and I continue to use it this way. Okay. Now what I want to show you is a question that I see a lot of people ask, and that's transitions when it comes to albums and projects and stuff like that. So right now what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you an example of a transition. So remember how I told you that I got all my tracks and 2-track mixes up top, and then my effects and stuff like that, or sound beds and sound effects down here. What we're going to do right now is I'm going to play you a transition coming off of one song, going into the other. I think if you are able to physically see the transition, it's going to help you so much to understand how this actually works, or how my workflow as far as it working. So check this out.
Tell me what I'm saying is crazy, baby. We had a good time when both of us in love, no judge. And tell me what I'm saying is crazy, baby. I gotta. Yeah.
So right there, a seamless transition, and that would be really hard to do any other way, in my opinion. So it's all in the session. And you can see that the marker that I have here literally starts on that song. And there's a good reason why I do that. So now all of those sound effects and everything, I'm able to balance from a volume standpoint and say, okay, this volume feels right. And now create that seamless transition to say, okay, put that song right there. I want it to end and come in, boom. And now I have that seamless transition. So this is also an easy way to do it just by having everything in the session so that you can manipulate it and do it that way as well. Moving on. So I know what you may be saying. How the heck do you bounce this? How do you put it into a WAV format, MP3 format? How do I make sure that I'm getting those transitions and that it's seamless? Well, it's simpler than you think. So let's say, for instance, we have this song, which is we used to, and obviously we have our memory location or marker already set at the beginning of the song. So literally the song is going to start track 4 at the very beginning of the song, like so. Cool. And now we have to choose where it ends. Where I like to put the end of the marker is at the beginning of the next song, right at the very beginning. So right now what we're going to do is we're going to put this at the very beginning, like so. Boom. And now it's at the beginning of the next song and at the beginning of the actual song. And what you got to realize also is that all the transition information or all of those sound beds and stuff like that is also going to be burnt into track 4. So now when I go to bounce it, I'll be bouncing this particular track. And now when I bounce the next track, track 5, I'm literally just going to bounce track 5 perfectly. And that transition is going to be seamless. As soon as that track 4 ends, track 5 will begin as we saw in our session. As long as we have those markers and that selection selected very, very finely, you'll be fine. So this is just a simple setup that I have when it comes to my masters. No, I didn't show you the technical details, which I'll show you in another video as far as how to get those sonics and how to make things tight and stuff like that. But I think a lot of people may or may not know about just setting up the session for an album. You may have been used to just pretty much mastering one song, but when it comes to an album, it's a whole different process. And I think that a lot of places where people may fall short is the organization and workflow. So, overview. Long story short, I showed you the session setup with basically setting up the memory locations at the very top. You can do this in any of your DAWs, setting markers at the very beginning of every single song. So all of these markers are at the very beginning of every single song, so I know where it is. I have all of my instrument like effects or kind of like I guess you could say sound beds or Foley stuff at towards the bottom hand side of everything, so I can mess with that and manipulate that. And then of course when it comes to your transitions, I'm basically making sure I bounce everything from the start of the song to the very end of the song and going from there. So I really hope this was helpful. It's a very simple video. You can watch it again and again. Please make sure you comment, like, and subscribe. Also, make sure that you follow us at Help Me Devvon on Instagram. And make sure, if you would like, become a paid member to our channel, where we give you a bunch of exclusive episodes from the My Audio Nerds podcast, exclusive content of me mixing and mastering start to finish. And you also get money in the HMD store. So I hope that was enjoyable for you guys. Thank you so much for supporting me throughout the years, to be honest with you. And until next time, you guys.